Hey guys, what's up? It's iFlynn here, and welcome to episode number 4 of my Warframe Beginner's Guide for 2019. Before we move on with today's episode, DE recently announced that they will be changing up the beginning of the game slightly later this year, so I just want you to keep that in mind moving forward with this guide in case anything major happens to change. There's absolutely no way for me to guess what exactly is going to change, but based off the little teaser picture that they showed on Twitter, I'm assuming that they're just going to change up the prologue quest or cinematics to contain a little bit more lore. I also want to apologize for this episode taking so long to come out. I was pretty busy this week, so sorry for the delay. But anyway, in today's episode, we're going to be going over everything that you should be doing as soon as you reach Mercury. You will notice that Mercury does not have any planets other than Venus connecting to it, so the next planet that we're trying to get to is Mars. This means that we're going to have to go back to take a look at the Mars Junction requirements that are located on Earth. So requirement number 1 is to complete the Once Awake quest. To start the Once Awake quest, go to your codex and select it. Alternatively, it should show up under the X with a dot tab on your navigation. The Once Awake quest is an extremely easy quest that was put together to introduce you to the Infested faction. This quest is made up of a multitude of different missions just against the Infested, nothing too special or hard. From the quest, you will be rewarded with a blueprint for the weapon known as the Heat Sword, and also a elemental damage mod for your melee weapons known as Molten Impact that will add fire damage to your weapon. Most players won't struggle with this quest, but if you are, make sure to prioritize the enemies that look like squids. These enemies are known as Ancients, who have powerful auras that will either debuff you in some way or buff up the rest of the Infested. The next requirement is to defeat 150 Frontier Grineer enemies on Earth. This should come pretty easy, just run around and kill a bunch of enemies on Earth and you'll get this requirement in no time. Requirement number 3 is to collect 500 Rubido. I recommend doing this on Everest on Earth so you can farm for Intensify if you haven't already got it, and also get the 150 kills that you need for the previous requirement. If you're struggling to collect all of the Rubido that's needed, or just want to collect resources around you more efficiently, go to your foundry and type Taxon into the top left and then craft it. The Taxon is your first Sentinel. It comes equipped with an Ice Beam that will slow down enemies whenever they try to get close, and a mod known as Vacuum that will suck up pickups within an area around you based off of the rank of the mod. Sentinels and their weapons will grant you Master XP, so it's worth crafting and keeping them on at all times for that bonus Master XP as a newer player. The final requirement is to complete the spy mission called Susi on Mercury. It should be extremely straightforward, but I will link my Grineer spy mission guide as a card and in the description below whenever it becomes available, so you can watch that if you're struggling. Keep in mind that before you move on to Mars, you want to try and complete as many nodes as you can on Mercury. I recommend getting all the way up to Toastolge. Toastolge is the assassination node for Captain Vor. He actually drops 2 weapons, a pistol known as the Seer and a sword known as the Cronus. The drops for the Seer work in a familiar way to the Rhino Warframe, where you're going to have to run missions multiple times to get everything that you need to craft the weapon. You're going to need to farm the Seer Blueprint, the Seer Barrel, and the Seer Receiver from Vor, but for the Cronus, you're only going to need to get the Blueprint. Obtaining these weapons is not a must. They aren't extremely powerful weapons or anything like that. Realistically, you're just picking them up for the Mastery rank, craft them, level them up from 0 to 30, and then sell them. Speaking of Mastery rank, I recommend purchasing the following weapons to level from level 0 to 30 for bonus Master XP. In the primary category, we have the Bratton, the MK1 Bratton, the Strun, and the MK1 Strun. Alternatively, if you chose the MK1 Bratton at the start of the game, you want to purchase the MK1 Paris. In the secondary category, we have the MK1 Furious and the Leto. Again, if you picked the Leto at the start, now you want to be buying the MK1 Kunai instead. And for melee weapons, we have the MK1 Bow. All of the weapons that I just listed, you purchase them for credits. It's good to get these weapons out of the way first, as they are pretty much a 100% sell once you get them to level 30 for the first time. None of them really have any redeeming factors, so it's better to level them and scrap them sooner rather than later. Now that you have all of the weapons, the difficult part as a newer player is leveling them as fast as possible. There are 2 game modes that will allow you to level your weapons somewhat efficiently at the start of the game. Which one you choose will come down to which one you're more comfortable with. You can choose to do a Dark Sector defense mission. These will give a decent amount of XP and credits. You can either stay for 5 waves to make the most out of the credit farm, or you can stay until wave 10 to get even more XP and a little bit more credits. I do recommend playing this on public, as more players means more enemies and also shared affinity. The missions will probably go even faster too. Or you can fully stealth spy missions. Of course, I'm not expecting newer players to be gods at speedrunning spy missions, but if you want to, you can get bonus XP by stealing all free data vaults without being detected inside them. Of course, no matter what option you choose, ensure that you're only leveling one weapon at a time so that weapon gets a larger chunk of XP, meaning that you level it faster. It's far more efficient to level one weapon at a time rather than multiple weapons because of the affinity distribution that we talked about in the previous episode. As we start to get deeper and deeper into the star chart, the enemy's level will start to get higher and higher, and you won't be able to deal enough or take enough damage simply by leveling your equipment. Your Warframe and weapons power lies within the mods that they have equipped to them. The more that we level our Warframes and weapons, the more modding capacity they're going to have. To optimally mod our weapons and Warframes, we must first understand everything there is to understand within the modding section of our arsenal. Warframes have 10 modding slots. The one on the top left is reserved for aura mods that will give a bonus to you and your squad. And the slot on the top right is reserved for Exilus mods, basically utility and mobility mods. Equipping an aura mod will give your Warframe bonus modding capacity rather than taking it away. These mods can only be obtained from alerts for the most part. The Exilus slot on the top right is locked behind what is known as an Exilus adapter, which we're going to get later. Within your modding section for both your Warframes and your weapons, you will have noticed that on the top right hand corner of some of the blank spots there is a shape. This shape is what we like to call a polarity. You'll notice that these polarities can also be seen on the top right hand corner of all of your mods too. If you match the polarity on your mod with the one in the modding section, it will halve the amount of modding capacity that is displayed on the top left that the mod will cost. Most mods when equipped will take a percentage of your Warframe's base stat and then add that on top. So let's equip this max rank vitality mod to my level 30 Warframe as an example. A fresh Warframe has 100 health. A max rank vitality will increase your health by 440%. 440% of 100 is 440. At max rank, Warframe has 300 health, so when we equip our max rank vitality, we end up having 740 health. If we equip the vitality mod to a slot that has a matching polarity, in this case a D polarity, it will only consume 6 points of modding capacity. If we equip it to a blank spot, it will consume the full 12. You can add more polarities to your Warframes or weapons by using what is known as Forma. You won't be able to craft Forma right now, but we will be covering it in the next episode, so I figured that it would be worth mentioning here. You can also permanently double the modding capacity of your Warframes and weapons by using what are known as Orokin reactors for Warframes and Orokin catalysts for weapons. These are commonly referred to as golden and blue potatoes. You can obtain the consumable blueprints for gold and blue potatoes from alerts, invasions, and sorties. You will gain access to more alerts and invasions as you progress through the star chart. Sorties are an endgame activity that has a random chance to drop the blueprints for these potatoes, but we will of course unlock them at a later date. The most reliable way to obtain the consumable blueprints for these potatoes is by playing the Gift of the Lotus alert that is put up after every official dev stream that is held every 2 Fridays over at twitch.tv/Warframe. Now let's talk a little bit about weapon modding, as this is what new players struggle with the most. Please note that if you are an experienced player watching this, I'm only going to be covering the stats damage, elemental damage, and IPS damage, so we don't confuse the newer players too much by throwing multi-shot, critical chance, critical damage, and status chance into the mix. If you're a newer player to Warframe, you may find it difficult to figure out how much damage your weapon actually deals. Let's take our MK1 Paris as an example. On the stats menu, we can see 3 different stats called Impact, Puncture, and Slash. These 3 stats are known as physical damage types. Most weapons have these bar a few. If you add the impact, puncture, and slash numbers together, you will find your weapon's total damage in a scenario where an enemy would have no weaknesses or resistances. So in this case, 6 plus 96 plus 18 is equal to 120, so our MK1 Paris has a total of 120 damage. To increase how much damage we deal overall, we equip the mod known as Serration. My Serration on this account only gives 75% bonus damage. 75% of 120 is 90. Our impact, puncture, and slash stats, otherwise referred to as IPS, have been increased accordingly to give us 210 damage because 120 plus 90 equals 210. A common mistake that I see a lot of new players make is they use IPS mods to increase their overall damage. This is actually a really bad idea unless you have an IPS mod that gives a bonus higher than 90% and the weapon's total damage is made up of 90% of the physical damage type that you're trying to mod for. The reason for this being is elemental mods. A physical damage type mod such as Piercing Hit, for example, at max rank would take 30% off our puncture stat and add it on top of our total damage, where an elemental mod such as Hellfire, Stormbringer, etc. at max rank would take 90% of our impact, puncture, and slash added together and then add that on top. So not only do elemental mods take a bigger percentage, they also take a bigger percentage from a larger pool of stats, making it more worth it to run a 90% elemental mod over a specific physical damage type mod 90% of the time. Different elements can also grant damage bonuses or reductions depending on the enemies that you're going against. Let's take the Charger enemies from the Infested faction that we were just introduced to. If we wanted to deal more damage to that specific type of enemy, we could use fire damage, as it grants 25% bonus damage, meaning it would take 25% of your total fire damage and then add that on top. Additionally, you can create elemental combos based off of where you put your elemental mods in your weapons modding section. You see, the weapons modding section actually has somewhat of a secret order. The slot on the top left is slot number 1, and then the slot on the bottom right is slot number 8. You can create elemental combos by ensuring that elemental mods are placed one after another in numerical order, meaning if I wanted to make radiation damage, I could put Hellfire into slot 1 and then Stormbringer into slot 2. The placement of Stormbringer does not really matter. I could place it in slot 8 if I really wanted to, but what does matter, or what would interrupt the radiation damage we created, is if I put a different elemental damage mod in slots 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, or 7, while Stormbringer is in slot 8. So you could use any normal mod in between your two elemental mods and it will be okay. The problem of getting elemental combos that you don't want only occurs when you place another elemental mod between the two original. You can view what elements you need to create different elemental combos by going to your codex, selecting the training tab, and then viewing the damage tutorial. On page 5, it will show you all the elemental combos and how to make them. Blast is made from cold and fire. Radiation is made from fire and electric. Gas is made from fire and toxin. Magnetic is made from cold and electric. Viral is made from cold and toxin. And corrosive is made from electric and toxin. Like mentioned before, different elements will deal different amounts of damage to different enemies, but we'll go over the best elements to use versus the different enemy types in the next episode. If you enjoyed this episode of Beginner's Guide, make sure to hit like and subscribe for more Warframe content. If you want to sign up for a Mesa Prime Access giveaway, link is in the description below, as well as a link to my merch store if you want to support me a little further. There's only 4 days left on the Mesa Prime Access giveaway. The winner will be announced via email, so make sure to sign up if you haven't already. The next episode of Beginner's Guide will be released on the 29th of January, so I'll see you guys in the next episode.